Share the story of your program, share the story of your team, represent your university, and stay out of the headlines. You don't need to declare yourself off-season champions. You don't need to bring up how many resources you may have had and how you learn to win with more now. You just need to stay out of the headlines when you go to one of these events.
At the end of the day, you're playing with 500 people who want to have fun and playing with you. So you have to contribute by also having fun yourself. Learn to embrace failure, because you learn a lot better from mistakes than you do from any kind of success that you have. My last piece of advice would be just get in the gym and work hard.
We're back virtual this week. Brian Tripp, former Nittany Lion quarterback Christian Hackenberg, for another episode of Statewide here on State Media. Coming up, our guest on this week's show from the Penn State women's volleyball team, I think one of the best players in the country, Kennedy Martin, our guest. We'll talk about what is coming up this season, the excitement of playing at the Cowboys Stadium, AT&T Stadium. You can go back to calling it AT&T Stadium now that the World Cup is over, Wrigley Field and the Palestra, and what I think is going to be a really good team for them this year. And we're also going to dive into a little college football news before Penn State takes center stage at Big Ten Football Media Days, which is next week, which means, Hack, this, I think, is the last week that we kind of have to dig for news. After this week, everything should be right at the forefront, and it is the unofficial start of the college football season once Big Ten Media Days commence, and they'll be in wonderful Chicago this year.
We should have, plenty of content to pull from with all the media days kicking off. But it has been a pretty electric week, all things considered.
I've been on the field and I've been in the training room. I know what it takes to get back stronger. And that's why I'm proud to tell you about PAM Health, the official rehabilitation partner of Penn State Athletics and Penn State football. For more than 20 years, PAM Health has helped people recover from injuries, illness, and surgery with focused physical, occupational, and speech therapy so they can reach their full potential. And in June, PAM Health is opening a new state-of-the-art rehabilitation center near Penn State in the Harrisburg area, serving patients from across the region with excellent care close to home. Whether you're rehabbing from a tough play, a medical setback, or getting back to everyday life, PAM Health is there with you every step of the way. Make sure you guys visit pamhealth.com to learn more.
Our goal with this show, and I think as we get into the fall, will be certainly to spotlight the accomplishments and the news and happenings of all of the Penn State teams. But our goal also, because of our interest, and I think with this audience that we've developed here on Statewide, is to talk about what's impacting college sports, the big news across the Big Ten, and some of the collegiate landscape issues in college sports today. And obviously the big news that we just learned earlier today, Ward Manuel, as we record this on Monday night, Ward Manuel at the end of the calendar year, despite his contract continuing through 2030, is going to step down as the athletic director at Michigan. I think we don't have to rehash the major stories that have been in the news. It all started with the sign stealing scandal, Connor Stallions, and then what was the extent of the knowledge from up and down the Michigan staff and the athletic director in that. Most recent, Sharon Moore and Paige Shiver, and the alleged affair and everything that went down with that situation almost, 8 months ago now, I guess it would be. There's just, and then there's other things that have happened within the athletic department. But the news, which I think was much anticipated, and we kind of hinted at last week, that Ward Manuel is going to step down, but he's not going to step down until the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, well, Dusty May bounced too. I guess he probably got a little sniff of what was to come, but I can't think of the last time that you had two football coach firings really, or vacancies, shall I say? One vacancy, the other a fire because of a departure, and then misconduct in AD, and your head basketball coach right after a national championship. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very telling of the breadth and depth of what went on. Every time I get a chance to take a shot at Michigan, I kind of have to, but talk about lack of institutional control by definition. I think that might have been it. And it is unfortunate, though, for a fan base, a blue blood program, blue blood school across all of those sports and major revenue generation sports. Tough path. I think they'll obviously get over it. I think just their history and all that stuff is something that definitely helps with times like this. But yeah, man, I think it's definitely a trying time if you're a Michigan man or woman.
And a $10+ million investigation into the athletic department and the misconduct and alleged wrongdoings within the athletic department. And it starts at the university president's office, and they've had turnover there, to the athletic director, to the coaches, Jim Harbaugh, Sharon Moore, and beyond within the athletic department, just the ones that have kind of gotten the headlines or what I mentioned at the top of the show, but there's so much more to it than that. And you mentioned, especially with this fan base at Penn State and the audience that we have, when you hear the words, and you referenced it, but institutional control and the culture of the athletics at Michigan right now is something that's going to come under the magnifying glass probably even further and fall under that microscope even more as people examine and ponder what the NCAA, if anything, the NCAA will levy further to what Michigan has already levied against itself from some of the investigations and some of the I don't even know what the right word is for it, but some of the
self-punishment, self-suffering. I don't know. You brought up a great point, though. I mean, I think timing is everything to a degree with some of these things, and with the NCAA and so much turmoil the past few years in terms of how much power do they really have. And we actually touched on this going back to the whole Brendan Sorsby thing, right? Yep. Like, I'd love to have seen the repercussions of that whole thing 10 years ago. What would have came out, what would have been levied, how that would have been handled. I think this is just another example of something that is snowballed out of control, and there's really no sheriff in town. And I guess just adds to the adage of what is college sports in today, and everyone says it's the Wild West. And I don't think they really understand that it really is the Wild West in a lot of ways.
And in so many instances, and this is where I would delineate between Sorsby and Texas Tech, or even Sorsby and Cincinnati, and what's going on at Michigan. I hate to see student athletes get punished. And I know that term's not used as stringently anymore, but I hate to see student athletes get punished for the wrongdoings. And really, in this case, it is of their superiors. And it's a culture issue from the highest end within the university and within the athletic department. And you're looking at coaches and people who are meant to lead young people and hopefully shape them into more than just great athletes, but shape them into great human beings from beyond that. And for me, when you start talking about sanctions and punishment and whatever else Michigan may levy, or the NCAA may levy themselves in this situation, look, as rival fans and as a fan base in Penn State that was wronged by the NCAA when it had more power 15, 16 years ago, I get where the virtue signaling can come from. But in this case, these athletes, from what's been reported, they aren't the ones who are at fault here. And I think it's a troubling road when you start to punish athletes and programs for something that, 12, 13, 14 coaching staff or athletic staff department members, they're no longer employed at Michigan. And that's where I draw the line and start to have a problem with it. It's a very difficult thing to do because you are always punishing when you're looking back at previous transgressions in this case. So I don't know where it goes from here. I just think it's something that's worth mentioning, worth talking about. And now, where does the Michigan, I know you said right at the top, right? I think we can try to examine, figure, and guess. But for us, even as educated people who cover these types of stories, for us, it's a best guess at best, right? In this situation, how does this impact Michigan? How does it impact the programs? Well, obviously, if there are some sort of sanctions or punishments levied, that then will become a story. But ultimately, I think more often than not, especially when you have a powerhouse athletic program like the University of Michigan, they're bigger than one person or bigger than multiple people. And for all the people, and we discussed it, what type of chaos and noise, there's certainly going to be some of that surrounding the programs and the department, particularly the football team going into the season. But they fell into a really strong hire, Kyle Whittingham, and he's the type of person you'd want at the helm of your football program in a time like this. And from my perspective, I don't see an athletic department like Michigan really being impacted all that much from this.
Well, it's funny because I was going to start to go down this path. I think it was much easier to overcome these types of things previously when you weren't having to pay for your rosters, right? You enabled the opportunities for the student athletes to make some choices that was bigger than themselves with no real financial gain on the other side of it. And that's ultimately why I think, you could use the Penn State example. I think you could use the USC example. Mm-hmm. Some folks are valued the way they are at their alma maters, but I think if you were to come in and drop some form of financial punishment from the NCAA's perspective here, now that's a big issue and really, really hard to overcome in today's day and age. You start taking funds out of the athletic department, that affects revenue sharing. And then is it as popular of a product to fund externally? I think Michigan would probably rally around that when you look at the way that they attacked their national championship run in football. Kind of us against the world type of mentality, but still that's a lot of money that you're going to have to be able to backfill. And then what's the ripple effect of that 4, 5, 6 years down the line as these athletic departments are starting to get managed much more like a true business. You know what I mean? You have to project revenue. You have to consistently backfill the revenue that's going out and create new streams that you can actually start to depend on and project outward. And if you were to take a big chunk out of that via some form of financial sanction, that's going to be tough to overcome.
And I know this sometimes, and look, we want to do our best to be educated, thoughtful, and deliver something that we feel like resonates with the audience that's watching us. And I have difficulty when talking about this type of topic. For a lot of people, it hits close to home. I understand that. But because of the nature of college sports today, what you and I are doing is speculating and guessing at best. What power does the NCAA have? What will come from the internal investigation? What will Michigan's board? What will their president, now that that's changed hands? When Ward Manuel departs at the end of December, what will happen there? I hate going down this road of just talking to talk about it, because I prefer to have a concrete idea and concrete evidence, and leaning back on previous examples and historical examples to support whatever hypothetical thought process or whatever I can come up with as to where I feel like this is going. But because of the uncertainty of the NCAA in college sports right now, and because so many parts are moving parts at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh is never coming back and coaching college football again. And Sharon Moore, hopefully, his life, this is a man who threatened to take his own life, and there's other people involved. I think it can be a challenging topic to discuss as well. And until the legal proceedings play out in many of these situations, there's another assistant coach involved. They had stuff happen right after COVID with their hockey program, and a former coach there, and Mel Pearson and others who are no longer with that. So there's been a lot of examples there as to a lack of institutional control, and certainly a culture that from the top isn't a culture of excellence, which is really what I think, just like Penn State, and I know at the end of the day, these are rivals, but Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, you see those brands and you see those logos and you think of the very best, not only in college sports, but particularly Michigan, an outstanding academic institution. So to me, it's curiosity and speculation about where it goes from here rather than, no, this is what should happen. This is why it should happen. I don't feel strong enough and have enough evidence or enough that research where I can really form an educated hypothetical as to where I think it's going to go.
That's a very good point. I think the only thing that we can settle on as a pretty much bet your house solid to come out of this is the next hire is going to be a very important one for them in terms of how they set the trajectory. Whomever that person leading that athletic department is, it's going to have to be someone who I think is going to be able to handle this PR wave that's going to come and do so with a solid background of being able to overcome tough times and ultimately set the ship straight with a very good heading and have a solid North Star as a person. So I think that's one thing that we know has to happen out of this in order to get the train back on the tracks. But as you said, I never try to skip a chance to take a shot at Michigan. That was being facetious, but everything you said about the program is, and that institution as a whole is 100% true. Just tons of very successful business leaders, everything. And frankly, it's good for the Big Ten. So you need to be able to salvage this. And I think they have the network to do so.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. As you can see, the background behind me is a little bit different this week. I'm in Cleveland for a sports broadcasting camp. Really fun to get to talk to the next generation of broadcasters, 10 to 19 years old. I tell them the same message I tell my college students at Penn State. I'm sure some of the things that you heard, Hack, as you were making that transition, whether you like it or not, you are a member of the media now, but it's about repetition. Right. And it's about how many times you can get experience in front of a microphone doing no matter what it is. Every time that red light comes on or that light comes on or that microphone has a red light around it, you're on. And people are, I don't want to say hanging on your every word, but there's a little pressure to deliver. Maybe not the same as when you were an athlete, but I'm here in Cleveland and it got me thinking, who are some of the best Penn State football players to come from the state of Ohio? And I was doing a little research and I read a great article by Mike Poorman on statecollege.com. And in my research, did you know John Schaefer, Todd Blackledge, right? The two national championship winning quarterbacks at Penn State, both Ohioans. And then Darrell Clark, Sean Clifford, Drew Aller. There is a very strong Penn State connection to this state, particularly at the quarterback, your brethren at the quarterback position.
It's very true. I was going to say Shafe, Blackledge, and then obviously Cliff and Drew more recently. Yeah, it's strange, and then when you think about how rich of a state the state of Pennsylvania has been historically at that position, think of some of the misses we've had. I mean, I think one of the old stories that I had heard, just, conversations with the old alumni, I think Jim Kelly was recruited as a linebacker at Penn State. So it is funny. But I hope you're enjoying yourself in Cleveland, Tripp, because I like the food there. When I was in Cincinnati for a little bit, I liked the food there, but not much else to do. So,
all right. So you got to pick, though, the best quarterback of all time from Pennsylvania. You have Montana, Marino, Namath, Kelly, Unitas, Blanda.
Yeah, that's tough. I think Marino was arguably the greatest passer, just pure passer of the football of all time. But I did read Johnny Unitas's book, and when you talk about setting the trajectory of the position, Johnny Unitas definitely did that in terms of command, calling his own plays in the huddle, story. I think he took a 22 through the hand when he was a kid, which was pretty cool in his book. So Johnny Unitas, I read that book. I thought it was awesome. So I'll take it all the way back with Johnny U, but there's been a lot of good ones, man. A lot of good ones.
All right. And we can't do this as well without shouting out Kajana Carter. He's from Ohio too.
Yeah, for sure.
And and I hope everyone that's watching this can see this. One of the great students at Penn State who's going to be a part of the next generation of broadcasting. His name's Michael Soroti. He's going to be a senior this year. He does broadcast with the women's volleyball team and a lot of other programs. He's working the camp as well. And he showed me this picture earlier today when I told him that we were getting set to do the podcast this evening. Now, it does make us feel old, but this kid, right? Well, kid in the yellow sweatshirt right there is now 21-year-old senior at Penn State next to number 14 quarterback. I do like the white trim on the jerseys. I thought that was a big opportunity for Adidas to bring the white trim back, especially after the generations of greatness the last couple of years. But what is this picture circa?
That's Flow. So that's got to be 2013, if not early 2014. Right after the year, because I believe I chopped that puppy off right after spring ball heading into the 14 season. So, and
then you remember Tony Mancuso there in the background, right?
Mancuso, I believe he's with the Jets now, correct?
He's with the Jets. I was in his time flies.
Little swap.
time flies. He wasn't the only one to make that swap. That picture, it makes me feel old. I can only imagine.
Wow.
If he was around, I'd have him hop in. He did help me with some questions for our guest, Kennedy Martin, this week from the Penn State women's volleyball team, coming off an All-American season again. Just an outstanding attacker from the right side, and has such great leadership. In her first year at Penn State, put up outstanding numbers. And I think this year, reunited with her setter transferring in from Florida, could put up even bigger numbers. And I think a team that feels really good about where they're heading going into the fall. So now's the perfect time for our chat with Kennedy Martin from Penn State women's volleyball here on Statewide. Kennedy, it's always so great to catch up. It's hard to believe you're going into a rising senior, your senior season here at Penn State. For fans, peel back the curtain a little bit as we go into the fall, and as that month of August comes here, and sooner rather than later, you're going to be in South Gym gearing up for the season. What have you done the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, not only to get ready for another season on the court, but also maybe get a little time away during the summer?
So once final exams ended for me end of April. So from May 1st to June 8th, we were on summer break and traveling all over the country for me. And June 8th was our report date. All 16 of us came to campus ready to go. Lifting, working really hard in the weight room, and doing senior-led practices. And lots of getting to know each other on and off the court.
You've been through so many seasons and have had different experiences. How important is that time over the summer where as a team you're forming, you're bonding, you're creating that chemistry? How important is that time over the summer to form the culture and the team and the identity that you'll have going into the fall?
Summer's huge for us. Thankfully, all of our 16 of our players were here throughout the spring and summer. So we've had this roster since January. But summer's a great time because although we're sad that coaches aren't allowed in the building, it definitely gives us the free go-ahead to make the culture and make the standard whatever we see fit as a team. And it really just gears us into season, starting to hold each other accountable to what is not acceptable to be a part of the Penn State women's volleyball team.
Especially in today's day and age of college sports, how unique is it to have all 16 players on your roster around throughout the entirety of the spring and summer so you have a jump start going into the fall?
Yeah, it is pretty rare, I'd say, especially with the transfer portal nowadays. I mean, I came here this time last year, so I only got the summer with the team before I began my first season at Penn State. So it's been huge. I think everyone knows what it's going to be like when the coaches step in the gym. So we're all be ready to go come August.
What did you learn about yourself and as a team last season? I know you had another great year, first team All-American, but the team had some adversity throughout the year. So what did you learn last year that you can apply that makes you a better player and maybe a stronger leader going into your senior year?
Yeah, I think I learned that everyone just processes and handles adversity differently. And just working through that and people like kind of taking their time working through things. It was a learning process of figuring out how, as a team, how are we going to get through this adversity.
I think there's so much focus, and obviously there's a lot of opportunities for a player like yourself and many women's volleyball players at Penn State after graduation and the chance to play professionally. But I think sometimes we lose focus too, that during these collegiate formative years, you're still a very young adult. So how does going through something like that, do you think, can it help you as well in life, right? Like this is a process, and through your college experience, good or bad, there are probably things you can take out of this experience as a volleyball player and hopefully use down the line 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all 16 of us, I mean, we all came from different homes with different families who were raised and brought up differently, especially during the summer when there is no like authority figure to really put their foot down of like, no, this is how we're going to do it. Like we really have to figure out how to work together as peers with no one really ahead of the other to work through what we want our season to look like, which is very difficult, but we've done it I've done it for the past 4 years. So, it's been an awesome experience learning how to build a team.
I know that volleyball has helped take you some places, but you also mentioned you were able to travel over the course of the summer. Where's your favorite spot within the United States and maybe outside of the borders of the United States that you've been?
This summer, I went to the Dominican Republic on a mission trip with Athletes in Action, and we handed out water filters to people in a village there called Bonnie. That'll give them clean water because their tap water isn't safe to use for the next 10 years. So that was a really cool experience.
Why was it rewarding, and how did you get involved?
I was a part of an Athletes in Action group when I was in Florida, and when they called me and were like, hey, we have an extra spot, like you're always welcome. So I went with them and that Athletes in Action group, and it was so rewarding because everyone there the country itself is a very hospitable country. So we walked in their door and asked if we could share a gift with them. And they were like, yep, come in. And one of the families whose house we went to, also there's a huge language barrier. So we had translators with us. They didn't really speak English that well, and we didn't speak Spanish that well. So we had translators with us. But in some cases, Spanish sounds very different if you like learn it in Bolivia versus if you learn in Dominican. So there were some struggles, but they're very hospitable, very happy to have us there. And one of the families whose house we went to, they had a baby that was 16 days old, and it was just crazy to like see someone like just be welcomed into someone's home like that when you're at such a new and vulnerable time in someone's life. So it was pretty cool.
What did you learn about that culture?
I learned that they're very happy people, that they love to sing and dance. And I just learned how hospitable they were and just how grateful they were for everything they had. Family's super important to them too. That was really cool.
I know there are a lot of great athletes that have come from the Dominican, but when you have a group of athletes that travel together, right, there's a lot of big, strong, athletic people coming. So what did they think when they had the opportunity to meet, mingle, and integrate themselves with you in their homes as well?
Yeah, the country is a super big, huge fans of baseball, and we didn't have any baseball players there, so I think they're a little sad about that. But they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you're so tall!" They just like stared at me, and they're like, and I was like, "Yeah." But they're all really nice, and they love to see us. I know like some of the football players did like push-up competitions with some of the kids. They played soccer with a can in one of the yards. It was pretty fun. It was a good trip.
Did you take a volleyball with you?
Yep, we also had a sports camp. So the first 2 days we went to the village to pass out water filters, and on the third day they contacted local schools and we had a sports camp and we did stations. And we had 2 local club volleyball teams come and play, and we played with them. And it was really fun because they were really good, and their country's also really good at volleyball.
Yeah.
Like volleyball and baseball are probably the 2 sports that they love the most, and they were really good. And so it was fun because we were like, no, we want to play against you guys, and so we played against them and didn't go too easy on them. It was fun.
Well, you started to answer my next question. I was going to ask how you did.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I think we played like 2 sets to 25, and they're like, the camp ended and the team was like, no, like we'll stay, like we want to keep playing. So they kept playing. Like all the other kids had left, like the hundreds of other kids that were there for the baseball, the soccer station, everything else. They had all left, and it was just the club volleyball teams playing against us. And we were like, it was like on a concrete floor, so no knee pads, no one was going to the ground, but it was super fun.
Let's bring it back home. When you were growing up, who was someone that you looked up to as a young athlete, maybe in the sport of volleyball, maybe outside of the sport of volleyball? Who did you look up to as a young athlete?
As a young athlete, I definitely looked up to my dad most. He played professional football in the NFL, and he just always inspired me to believe in myself. He played at the Division II level and ended up in the NFL for 8 years undrafted. So he was like, Kennedy, like no one handed me anything. Like I had to believe in myself, and that was when his career really took off. I think he had gotten, when he first graduated college, he went to the Packers and got cut. He went to Europe, Amsterdam, and in the European League. And this guy was, I guess he had met a guy who was like, you have to believe in yourself. Like no one is going to do this for you. And then he came back and made the roster and played for 8 years. So he just really instilled that in me and all my sisters. I have 3 little sisters. So.
As the sport of volleyball has grown, Kennedy, do you recognize now that young people, have you had any opportunities to interact with young people who may look up to you?
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the sport. Lots of young girls come to our games, come to our camps, see me out in public, and they're like, Kennedy, can I have a picture? And they're all so nice, and I love talking to them.
Okay, if you could share 3 pieces of advice with a younger Kennedy Martin or a young girl who wants to be Kennedy Martin one day, what are 3 key things that you would tell that young girl that could help her get to play Division I women's volleyball at a school like Penn State?
3 pieces of advice. 1, I would say to have fun, because I think a lot of times people are their worst critics and their worst enemies when it comes to playing. And at the end of the day, you're playing with 5 other people who want to have fun and playing with you. So you have to contribute by also having fun yourself. Secondly, I would say learn to embrace failure, because you learn a lot better from mistakes than you do from any kind of success that you have. And getting really into the nitty-gritty is huge, and just failing over and over and over again until you figure it out. And then my last piece of advice would be just get in the gym and work hard. I think a lot of people are like, who should I email? Who should I do this? So like, you got to be in the gym, doing strength and conditioning for maintenance, for injury prevention, and vertical. So all that.
Well, I know one thing from covering the team, being around you, but I also noticed it in your first answer. And part of it was about being a good teammate. Define being a good teammate, Kennedy.
Ooh, I think there's lots of ways you can define being a good teammate. For me, it's when you're on the court, no matter how you're doing, you could be having the worst game of your life, but you're looking your teammates in the eyes, you're cheering them on, you're having physical contact, you're high-fiving them, you're touching them in between each rally, like letting you know, like, hey, like, I'm under control. I've got this. Like, don't worry about me. We'll continue playing. When you can see that a teammate is struggling, you grab their hand and like, look, I've practiced with you for this entire year since January. Like, I trust you more than anyone. There's no one else I want to be on the court with. So just really being there to support your teammates. Being a great teammate's huge for me. We just finished coaching camp, and that was like my biggest thing. I was like, you guys better be good teammates.
Do you feel more pressure or more of an impetus to be a leader this year going into your senior season?
Not particularly. I think just kind of naturally I've taken over the role like throughout my entire career. The other seniors on this team are awesome, and we're really close, and we hang out all the time. And so it's really been pretty easy because I have 4 other girls backing me up and leading the way. And everyone has their own little niche thing that they cover as a senior. So we all have each other's backs all the time. It's been great.
What has it been like to see the transition Alexis has made, your former teammate from Florida, to Penn State and to be a setter again for you here in Happy Valley?
Well, I'm just so proud of her. After getting injured my freshman year, her sophomore year, I mean, it wasn't just her, like her entire knee had gone. And so seeing her in the depths of rehab and the depths of recovery come all the way back and learning how to move her body because it wasn't the same anymore was really special. She's an awesome teammate. She's just smiling from ear to ear all the time. And just seeing her get her swagger back, get her confidence back has been truly full circle for me to watch and really inspiring.
There's a lot of people who know you have a ton of great coaches, and everyone's been inspired by Katie's story and her success as a head coach. When you get to be around one of the game's best every day, though, Megan Hodge, easy. What have you learned?
Wow. I have like no words when it comes to Megan. She's like, oh my gosh, she's just the coolest person on planet Earth. Like all of us are like, did you see that, Megan? Like, did you think that was good? And she's like, keep going. And we're like, okay, good. She's just the best, and greatness just inspires greatness, and that's definitely her. And we all want to make her proud every day, and we love her. She's the best.
When you watch some of her highlights back from her playing days at Penn State, what comes to mind?
She's just a beast. Like, there is no stopping Megan Hodge. Like, when she puts her eyes on something, she's going for it. So she's awesome to train under.
Kennedy, what would be a successful year for you and your teammates?
I think it's a senior year. I just want to go down with a fight. I don't care where it is. I pray that it's on the national championship court, but I want to go down like fighting, swinging, and I want to leave it all out there. And I want all of us to be just super proud of us looking back and all we've accomplished and overcome throughout the season.
Well, I think Penn State fans will have reason to be proud, and I usually save the hardest and best question for last. And I think it was the best answer that you gave as well, Kennedy. Have a great season. I know we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
So Kennedy Martin from the Penn State women's volleyball team, they'll be playing at Wrigley in Chicago early in the year. Speaking of Chicago, Big Ten football media days. Penn State will be on day one on Tuesday next week. Head coach Matt Campbell, quarterback Rocco Beck, offensive lineman Anthony Donko, and linebacker Tony Rojas will be the quartet to represent the Nittany Lions. I know we talked about it before, Christian. You were deprived of the opportunity because you left after your junior year. You never attended a Big Ten media day. But the goal of this, usually, like, this is where you get some of the more broad stroke media. You'll have reporters digging for stories on NIL, on these other topics that kind of go beyond the Penn State media world. We'll get a better look and focus at the Penn State perspective in early August when Penn State hosts its local media day. But for me, when you go to one of these, it's share the story of your program, share the story of your team, represent your university, and stay out of the headlines. You don't need to declare yourself off-season champions. You don't need to bring up how many resources you may have had and how you learn to win with more now. You just need to stay out of the headlines when you go to one of these events.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think the Big Ten is going to benefit, or at least the reporters at the Big Ten Media Day are going to benefit from the SEC and the ACC and a few of the other conferences doing just the opposite of what you said. So I think it's.
Do we start with Pat Narduzzi? Do we start with Greg Sankey? We're not going to go down that other road. Where do we start?
Yeah, man. I mean, we could start wherever, but there's definitely. Like I said, there's not going to be a lack of content to cover from that perspective. And I do think that these are chances for folks like Sankey to make a statement. And obviously when you kind of zoom out and look at the war game of what is happening in college football specifically, it is very much so SEC Big Ten oriented. And I think there's a little bit of a power struggle for which conference is going to ultimately lead the charge to what this new college football is going to look like here in the next 5 to 7 years. So there is some posturing going on, and I definitely respect that. Sankey has a pretty solid historical background to stand on with that. But man, there's some good ones. There's some good ones for sure.
So I think the quote was taken a little bit out of context, and Penn State fans, as you said, that they're never afraid to take a shot at Michigan. Anytime Pat Narduzzi's name comes up, they're not afraid to talk about Penn State Pitt. We discussed the rivalry and the potential of a return of that rivalry. He brought that up at the ACC media days, but he also brought up where the ACC ranks among power conferences in major college football. And he said, again, I think it was a little out of context, but he said that the ACC has the best conference. And look, I get advocating for your league. You're there in front of a media contingent that's usually very supportive and biased towards your league that covers it 24/7 and around the clock. If you had to rank, though, would you put the ACC third or fourth in college football? Obviously, Big Ten, SEC won 2. Big Ten's won 3 straight national championships with Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. SEC hands down number 2. So where would you put the ACC in front of or behind the Big 12 right now?
Yeah, I think that's really, really tough. What I will say is when you look at the historical acquisitions, right? Mm-hmm. So where are the 2 big conferences buying right now? There's not a lot of ACC action.
And the reason for that, Hack, is the ACC right now, and you can say whatever you want about Dabo Swinney and his hesitancy to get behind the transfer portal era, even though I think Clemson's been successful in an NIL world. The ACC right now is hurting, with the exception of Miami carrying the flag for the league. And the second best team in the league's been SMU, and the double-digit wins that they've had and everything. The ACC is hurt by the fact that the big brand tradition programs, and I'm going to lump Clemson in that.
Yeah,
Clemson, Florida State, they're down.
Yeah,
and they need to find a school outside of Miami to carry the banner for the league. And I'll tell you, just at the bottom of the league, credit to Vanderbilt for raising its game in the SEC. Georgia Tech has done it a bit in the ACC, but the bottom of the ACC has really been bottom barrel, whether it's the West Coast teams, Stanford and Cal, that they brought into the league, and you kind of just chuckle at that. But the top and the teams you'd expect to be there haven't been able to make that jump. And then I think the bottom is a lot bigger drop off than you're seeing in even the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, Virginia having the year they had last year's, I think, a testament to that. And it's no knocking Virginia. I mean, my dad's an alum. I grew up 30 minutes from there. It's a school that has some semblance of a history, at least.
And Bo Perbula named. He beat out Eli from Pitt, the transfer from Pitt. He's going to be quarterback 1. And there's kind of the story even there where, the call to Manny Diaz at Duke and saying, watch out, Miami's coming for your quarterback. And then Alex Mensa does end up transferring to Miami. So how can a school like a Duke make that next step when Miami's going to poach arguably the best returning starting quarterback in the league?
Yeah, it's tough, man. And again, no shot at the ACC. It's a great academic conference with the addition of Cal and Stanford.
Great in Olympic sports.
Yeah, great in Olympic sports. What is that? Water polos. I heard fantastic there. Some of those things are just.
But even a step back in basketball, that hasn't been there. To the extent as the SEC has by far and away surpassed it in basketball, and the Big 12 has surpassed it in basketball.
Yeah, to your point. So even the programs. I mean, I think you could probably still make the argument baseball, but to your you could also argue on the same side that the SEC, from a depth standpoint, has gotten even better there. So I think the ACC has just relied too much on its history, hasn't really invested in what it's need to invest in, and at the end of the day, you need to have something to hang your hat on, and everything, just like you mentioned, that the ACC has been able to hang their hat on historically has not been up to par. So with that being said, the long-awaited dance around your question.
Yeah, let's get to it here.
I mean, if I'm going to go watch a game, it's the Big 12 before the ACC. I mean, I enjoy, again, got a lot of ties to the ACC conference, but I just think the overall argument's just really hard to make as them even in the ballpark of being a top 3 Power 4 conference.
When you look at the Big 12, and this is just, again, complete conjecture at this point, is there anything to the fact that in the SEC and the Big 10, the footprint of those two leagues overlaps so heavily with the ACC, whereas the Big 12 has its own little slice of the pie in the Midwest and down into Texas and Arizona and whatever. Is there anything to that?
I think that's a very fair point. I mean, geography is a massive thing as it pertains to recruiting. And to your point, if you got, you're even seeing, I mean, I guess it's hard to make the argument.
Michael, come over here for a second. Hold on. We have the guy from the picture. We have the guy from the picture. We're gonna make you feel. Come in real quick.
Was the picture shown?
The picture was shown. This that was for those that weren't watching. That was the yellow sweatshirt. So if you want to feel really old, folks,
Michael, it's been a minute, bud. It's been a minute.
He said it's been a minute.
It has been. Yeah, good to see you again. I'm sure you remember that. It was a great moment in your career.
Yeah, shining moment. It's actually in my resume.
He said it's in his. I have my AirPods in. He said it was in his resume.
Yeah, I'm sure you have that photo framed in your basement too, because that's
it's down in the basement for sure. It didn't make the office wall, but down in the basement.
And you have his autograph right on it.
Yeah, exactly.
The autograph is somewhere. I had the poster with the whole team, and that's where it's from. But we only got a picture with you, so we thank you for. We had to get the quarterback, of course.
Yeah, naturally. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for popping on.
See, that was good.
Good to see you again.
That's good. That's good ad hoc content.
Good to see you again. I'm coming for both of your jobs. That's basically what he said.
That's fine. That's fine. He talks way better than I do, more coherently.
We should have had him on to talk about Michigan.
Yeah, we should have. That would have actually been a good one. Let's do it next week. We always got next week.
We always have.
But going back to what you were saying, geography is a big thing. Just having to compete for the homegrown talent, the ease of transportation, you're definitely going to be able to get a few more hidden gems out there. That when it comes to, do I want to go play for a big brand name, but have to figure out how I'm going to get my mom and my dad and my uncles and my cousins there to a game, as opposed to just being able to roll 2 or 3 hours down the road. That helps. And that's actually a really good call out, Tripp. I've never thought of it from that perspective.
Anything else we need to tackle this week? I mean, next week, I can't wait to jump in and talk what's all going down in Chicago, Big Ten football media days. And that, to me, I know I've said it multiple times, means it's here. It is football season.
Yeah. I think we can put a bow on this one. we're gonna have plenty to cover next week, as you said. So dig our teeth in, do a little research. But I think we covered the big dogs.
Yeah, we certainly did. Well, for Christian Hackenberg, we had Kenny Martin this week. We appreciate her. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Brian Tripp saying so long. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Statewide here on State Media.